The first empire you've never heard of. Before Rome, before Persia, before even the pharaohs of the New Kingdom, there was a place called Akkad. We don't even know exactly where its capital city stood. It is lost to the sand. But 4,400 years ago, this forgotten city gave birth to an idea so powerful it has never gone away. The idea that one man could rule the entire world. This is the true story of the Akkadian Empire, the first empire in history. In the year 2334 BCE, the land between the rivers, Mesopotamia, was not a country. It was a puzzle of warring city-states. Ur, Uruk, Lagash, each had its own walls, its own god and its own king. They spoke different languages. They fought over water and wheat. For generations, this chaos was normal. No one wanted to unite it, no one could. Then came a man whose real name we do not know. History calls him Sargon, but that is a title, it means true king. He was not born a prince. According to a legend written on clay tablets 700 years after he lived, Sargon was born to a priestess who could not keep him. She placed him in a basket of reeds, sealed it with bitumen, and set him on the river. It is the same story told of Moses, but Moses came 1,000 years later. The original story is Sargon's. He was found by a water drawer, raised as a gardener, and then became the cupbearer to the king of Kish. A cupbearer was not a waiter. He was the king's most trusted advisor. He tasted the wine to prevent poison. He heard every secret. But then an invasion came. Lugal-Zargasi, the king of Umma, conquered Kish, and Sargon did something no one expected. He did not flee. He did not beg for mercy. He raised an army of his own. His soldiers were not nobles. They were not charioteers. They were common people, gardeners, laborers, outcasts, and they were loyal only to him. In 2334 BCE, Sargon marched on the city of Uruk and tore down its walls. Then he marched on Ur, then Lagash, then Umma. In a series of 34 battles, he defeated every single Sumerian king. For the first time, the whole of southern Mesopotamia was under one ruler. But Sargon did something smarter than winning battles. He invented a new technology of power, administration. Before Sargon, if you conquered a city, you burned it. Sargon did not. He kept the city intact. He left the local religion alone, but he replaced the local governors with his own men. And those men were not his relatives. They were Akkadians, people who spoke his language. He then did the radical thing. He standardized weights and measures. He made roads safe for merchants, and he created the first standing professional army in history. 54,000 men who did not farm. They only fought. Within 40 years, Sargon's empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. He washed his weapons in the sea to show he had reached the end of the world. This was the first empire. But an empire is not just land, it is a story. And Sargon's story was written in a language called Akkadian. Before Sargon, only the Sumerian language was written down for official use. Sargon made Akkadian the language of the empire. His scribes took the Sumerian cuneiform symbols, wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay, and adapted them to write Akkadian. For 2,000 years after Sargon died, any king who wanted to be taken seriously in Mesopotamia had to speak and write Akkadian. It became the first true lingua franca, the language of diplomacy, law, and trade. When the Egyptian pharaoh wrote a letter to the king of Babylon, he wrote it in Akkadian. Sargon did not stop there. He did something that sounds very modern. He appointed his daughter Enheduanna as the high priestess of the moon god in the city of Ur. Enheduanna is history's first known author. She wrote 42 temple hymns that survive to this day. She signed her work. She wrote poems about war, exile, and her own political struggles. While Sargon conquered with bronze axes, Enheduanna conquered with words. Together they created not just an empire, but a culture. Sargon ruled for 55 years. He died of old age, a rarity for ancient kings. But here is the central mystery of the Akkadian Empire. It did not last. His sons held on. His grandson Naram-Sin was even more powerful. Naram-Sin did something no king had done before. He declared himself a god. He wrote his name with the divine symbol, the same symbol used for the stars. He built monuments to himself. He said, "I am the king of the four quarters of the universe." For a generation it worked. The empire expanded further, but then something went wrong, and we know exactly what happened because of a text called The Curse of Akkad. It is a real poem written on clay tablets, copied for centuries. The poem says that Naram-Sin angered the gods. He destroyed the temple of Enlil in the city of Nippur. The gods decided to punish him. They withdrew their protection, and then the barbarians came. From the Zagros Mountains, a people called the Gutians poured into Mesopotamia. They were not organized. They did not build cities. They destroyed everything. The poem describes it as a time when mothers did not close the doors of their homes. There was no point. There was nothing left to steal. The empire collapsed around 2154 BCE. After nearly 200 years, Akkad was gone. The capital city was never rebuilt. We still do not know where it is. For centuries, historians thought the Akkadian Empire collapsed simply because of foreign invasion. That is the old story. But evidence from the last 20 years tells a darker, more frightening truth. In the 1990s, archaeologists took soil samples from the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf. They analyzed layers of dust and sediment that settled 3,000 years ago. What they found was shocking. Around 2200 BCE, right when the Akkadian Empire was at its peak, a thick layer of volcanic ash appears. This ash came from a volcano thousands of miles away, possibly in Iceland or the Arabian Peninsula. The ash cloud did not destroy crops directly, but it blocked sunlight. Temperatures dropped, rain patterns shifted. The central rain-fed agricultural systems of northern Mesopotamia failed. Grain harvests dropped by 90%. There was no food. The Gutians did not destroy the empire. They walked into an empire that was already starving. Climate change, 4,200 years ago. The first empire did not die because of bronze or arrows. It died because the weather changed, and no one had built a system to survive that. The fall of Akkad became a legend. The story was told for 2,000 years. Every later empire, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, studied Akkad. They learned the lesson Sargon taught. You cannot rule an empire with only soldiers. You need roads, language, taxes, and a story that people believe. The Assyrian king Sargon II, who lived 1,600 years after Sargon of Akkad, literally named himself after the original Sargon. He wanted the old magic. We do not have Sargon's body. We do not have his capital. But we have his idea. Every nation with a capital city, every country with standardized weights, every government that speaks one official language is living in the shadow of Akkad. Before 2334 BCE, there were villages and cities and kings. After Sargon, there was a new kind of machine, an empire. And once that machine was invented, no one could uninvent it. That is the story of Akkad, the first empire, the forgotten blueprint, the proof that one man born in a basket on a river can rewrite the rules of the world for 4,000 years. But the mystery remains. Somewhere under the sand of modern Iraq, the city of Akkad sleeps, its clay tablets, its palaces, its treasure, still waiting to be found. And when we find it, we may finally see the face of the man who started everything, the true king, Sargon,